Americans' approval for the military action taken by the U.S. against Islamic militants in Iraq and Syria is at 60%. Let's put that in context. We have asked about approval for military actions 10 times, going all the way back to Grenada back in 1983. The average approval for these military incursions has been 68%. All of these questions were asked after the military action began. So that majority 60% approval for the current action is slightly below the approval we have had for other actions. Generally speaking, we have a significant majority who approve these actions. There have been 3 instances where approval was lower than it is now. Let's look at them here. First of all, military action against Libya, that was back in 2011, was at 47%. We can go back to 1999. U.S. military action against Kosovo and the Balkans was at 51%. And then, as I mentioned, Grenada, Ronald Reagan administration, all the way back to 1983, support was 53% then. So we do have higher than some approval now, but clearly below the overall average. Let's look at a couple of other points I think are of interest relating to Americans' views of what's going on now in terms of U.S. military action in Iraq and Syria. First of all, a rare occurrence. Republicans and Democrats basically agree. 64%, 65%, really no difference between Democrats and Republicans in their support for military action. Next point, what about ground troops? The president has said, no, there will be no significant ground troops in these countries to fight the Islamic militants. Overall, Americans would tend to agree. Only 40% of Americans say they would approve ground troops, but we have a partisan difference here. A majority of Republicans say yes to ground troops. A significant minority of Democrats agree with that overall. Is this a crisis? Well, 50% of Americans say that the Islamic militants form a critical threat to the U.S., which is a fairly high number. Another 31% say they are important to the U.S., but not a critical threat. But the overall bottom line from our most recent polling is 6 out of 10 Americans say yes to the military action against Islamic militants in Iraq and Syria. I'm Dr. Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.